Marco Rigamonti breaks his silence, and the truth lands like a hammer. Marc Marquez didn't just join Ducati, he painted MotoGP blood red. 23 wins from 28 races, 175 points clear, unbeaten streaks, Hungary humiliation, and a crew chief who calls him complete. This is the brutal chronicle of the man, the machine, and the aura. The Marquez era is not up for debate, it's law. Let's break the bones open. No soft touch, no polite nods. This is about Marc Marquez, the man who turned MotoGP from a sport into his personal theater of destruction, and the crew chief who finally pulled back the curtain and said what everyone else was too scared to admit. Marco Rigamonti didn't just talk about a rider, he defined an era. Todo al Rojo, the symbol that everyone missed. When Marquez first rolled the Ducati factory bike at the Barcelona test in 2024, he came cloaked in red, drowning in it, living in it. The phrase he chose, Todo al Rojo, sounded poetic then, but nobody clocked the prophecy. He wasn't announcing a fashion choice, he was declaring war. He was telling the paddock that 2025 was going to be soaked in Ducati scarlet, every lap, every corner, every finish line. Little did the world know that by mid-2025, he would deliver exactly that. 23 wins out of 28 races across 14 rounds, 7 consecutive doubles, and a stranglehold so violent it felt criminal. He built a 175-point lead over his nearest rival, his own brother, Alex Marquez. Misano was already shaping up to be his coronation, and the season wasn't even over. 7 rounds still on the board, and the man had already reduced the championship into a one-man demolition derby. This wasn't domination. This was domination squared. Some moments don't need commentary. They just echo. Hungary, 2025. Marquez already leading, already crushing. He didn't need to prove anything. And then he did something that will haunt the grid. On the final lap, when everyone else is holding on, nursing tires, surviving, he drops his fastest lap of the race. That's humiliation disguised as racing. There are races that add numbers to the statistics, and there are races that rewrite the soul of the sport. Marc had the race locked, but he chose to turn the knife on the final lap. That lap, his fastest of the race, wasn't just a timesheet entry. It was a public execution. Every rider behind him saw their hope torn into confetti. Fans felt it like a slap. Rivals understood the message. Even when he has nothing left to prove, he still chooses to humiliate. That's not arrogance. That's psychological warfare. And here's the kicker. Marc wasn't even at his limit. The new marriage, Rigamonti and the King. Let's talk crew chiefs. Marc built dynasties with Santi Hernandez at Honda. He tried the Frankie Carchedi experiment at Gresini, surviving the transition year. But when Ducati handed him Marco Rigamonti for 2025, it wasn't just a staffing decision. It was a marriage between the sport's most destructive rider and one of Ducati's sharpest engineers. Rigamonti, who had cut his teeth with Andrea Iannone and Enea Bastianini, walked into Marquez's garage knowing he wasn't just setting up a bike, he was stepping into the orbit of a black hole. And he admitted it. Complete. That was his word for Marquez. Not fast, not talented, not even great, complete. A rider who doesn't just twist the throttle, but understands every atom of why the bike does what it does. That's the level. That's the separation between Marc and the mortals. The Rossi parallel, but with iron teeth. People like to throw Rossi's Yamaha fairy tale around. They say he left Honda and proved himself by winning with a struggling machine in 2004. Respect earned. Legendary. But what they conveniently forget, or deliberately hide, is this. After 2014, Honda was a dumpster fire of a bike. Unstable, twitchy, violent. And yet, Marquez bent that titanium and carbon mess into his personal weapon. He made the impossible rideable. He carried Honda's corpse to podiums and titles when nobody else could even survive it. So let's cut the nonsense. Rossi proved himself once. Marquez proved himself for nearly a decade through broken bikes, broken bones, and broken paddock politics. And now, on the Ducati rocket, he's proving something darker. Give him the best bike and the rest of you don't even exist. Rigamonti's confession, the human side. What shocked Rigamonti wasn't the speed. He expected that. What floored him was the man himself. Marc Marquez, 8-time world champion, destroyer of dynasties, comes into the garage without ego. He doesn't wear his titles like a crown. He greets the crew, he jokes, he thanks, he apologizes. Rigamonti said it plainly. Open quote, "With one of his levels, you can expect one who arrives wearing his 8 championships on his forehead, which would be shit, and quite the opposite." Close quote. That humility is what makes the machine run. That's why his team bleeds for him. That's why Ducati's garage feels less like a workplace and more like a brotherhood. The respect isn't demanded, it's earned. Every day. The haters, silent in public, screaming in private. Here's the dirty truth. Most of the paddock already accepts Marc as the king. They just don't say it out loud because ego is a prison. Riders who built their brand on being the next can't afford to kneel in public. But inside, when the helmets come off, when the doors close, when it's just them and their shadows, they know. They know they can't touch him. They know they're racing for scraps. They know Marc is running an entirely different championship, the Marc Marquez Championship of Earth. Had the numbers that choke the sport: 23 wins from 28 races, 7 consecutive doubles, sprint plus GP, 175-point lead with 7 rounds left, unbeaten since Aragon, early June. Do the math. Has MotoGP ever seen a season like this? No. Has any rider created such a suffocating atmosphere of inevitability? No. This isn't just numbers. It's a chokehold on the entire sport. The what-if question. Terrifying answer. Fans ask, what if this isn't even Marc's peak? What if 2025 is just his adjustment year on Ducati? What if the real full-throttle destruction is yet to come? If that's true, God better show some mercy, because Marc won't. The aura. The Marquez era defined. What Rigamonti nailed wasn't just mechanics or results. He put words to the intangible. Marc isn't just a rider. He's an aura, a force field, an era condensed into one human body. This is the Marquez era, and it won't be denied. You can love it or hate it, but you can't escape it. Every lap, every victory, every humiliation of rivals is another brick in the empire. And Rigamonti's final word, complete, isn't just about riding style. It's about the man, the humility, the laughter, the thank yous. The fact that the most destructive rider in history still treats his team like equals. That's why they'll go to war for him. That's why Ducati gave him the keys. That's why 2025 is painted red and why the future looks even bloodier. Closing kill shot. Marc Marquez didn't just join Ducati. He didn't just win races. He didn't just humiliate rivals. He rewrote the rulebook, set fire to the record books, and painted MotoGP in a shade of red so deep it will stain the sport for generations. And the crew chief who sees him up close every day has already said it best. Marc Marquez is complete.